My parents insisted I pay off my sister's loans and let her move into their home. "You owe us for everything we gave you," my father yelled. I calmly smiled and handed him the eviction papers. "Actually, you've got 30 days to leave my property." Their faces went pale when it sank in. What if the people you loved most, the ones who raised you, systematically stole your identity for years, then leveraged the very home you built from nothing, all for the sake of your entitled sibling? That's not a nightmare. It was my Tuesday morning, and my blood ran ice cold. The sterile hum of my office, usually a comforting backdrop to my high-pressure tech job, felt like a buzzing alarm bell. My coffee, a silent witness, sat forgotten, cooling as a digital bomb detonated in my inbox, an email from the sheriff. My hands trembled, clicking open the attachment. A court-ordered lien. Against my house. For debts I absolutely, unequivocally never made. "Just breathe, Ava," I told myself, but the air caught in my throat. I'm Ava, and for the last decade, I've been the good daughter. You know the type, right? Straight A's, the responsible one who lands the big tech job and somehow, inevitably, becomes the family ATM. My younger sister, Chloe? She floated through life on a cloud of charm and endless second chances, while I built everything I owned, brick by painful brick. "Liam," I gasped into my phone, pacing my cramped office, my mind racing. "You are not going to believe this." My coworker, Liam, always calm, always collected, answered. "What happened?" "Spill." Someone took out loans using my house as collateral," I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. "But I never signed a single thing." "Are you sure?" Liam asked, his voice laced with concern. "Check your documents, Ava." But I already knew. Deep down, I knew with a chilling certainty exactly who was behind this. The same people who'd been living in my house, rent-free, for the last 3 years, treating it like their personal castle while I paid every single bill. Their faces flashed in my mind. My mother's voice echoed from childhood, a cruel, endless loop. "Ava, help your sister with her homework. Ava, lend Chloe your new dress. Ava, your sister needs money for college." Always Ava. Always giving. Always responsible. The familiar resentment, a low hum for years, was now a roaring fire. I drove home that evening, knuckles white, a vice grip on the steering wheel. The 2-story Colonial, the one I'd bought with every fiber of my being, stood defiant against the setting sun. My parents' cars, including the new SUV I'd helped them acquire, gleamed in the driveway. A knot tightened in my stomach. Inside, the scent of my mom's cooking hung heavy, a deceptive comfort. "Ava, you're home early," she said, not even looking up from her phone. My father, predictably, was glued to the TV in his usual recliner. I walked into the kitchen, the printed email feeling like a brick in my hand, and placed it squarely on the counter. "Can someone explain this?" My mother finally glanced at it, her expression maddeningly unchanged.
"Oh, that."
"Your father handled the paperwork. We needed to help Chloe with some expenses." My blood ran cold. "You used my house as collateral. Without asking me." My father finally bothered to look over. "We had your information from when you were younger. It's not a big deal. Chloe will pay it back eventually." Eventually. The word caught in my throat, raw and painful. Like the student loan she never paid? Or the credit cards you maxed out in my name? My mother waved a dismissive hand, stirring something garlicky on the stove. "Don't be dramatic, Ava. Family helps family. You're doing so well in your career. It's your duty to help your sister." I let out a hollow, bitter laugh. "My duty? I bought this house. I pay the mortgage, the utilities, the property tax, and now you're taking out loans against it." My father, oblivious, plowed on. "Speaking of Chloe, she's moving in next week. That Blake fellow turned out to be trouble, and she needs a fresh start." The room spun. "Moving in here?" "Of course here," Mom chirped, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "Where else would she go? You have all the space, and a family should stick together. You'll need to clear out that office of yours. Chloe needs her own room." My jaw clenched. And her bills? I asked, already knowing the infuriating answer. My father's fist slammed onto the table, making the plates jump. You owe us. We raised you, put you through school. I had scholarships. I shot back, my voice shaking with years of suppressed rage. I worked 3 jobs. I paid my own way. That's enough. He stood up, towering over me, just like he used to when I was a small child. This is what family does. Your sister needs help, and you're going to provide it. End of discussion. But something inside me, something I thought was long broken, clicked into place. It wasn't breaking, it was hardening. Quietly, almost imperceptibly, I reached into my bag and pressed a button on the voice recorder I'd started carrying months ago. Because sometimes, the responsible one isn't just responsible. They're ready. You're right, I said, my voice eerily steady. This is what family does. And I've got quite a collection of what our family does. My mother turned from the stove, a flicker of something in her eyes. Worry? Recognition? What's that supposed to mean? I picked up my bag, the recorder safely tucked inside. It means I'm done being the family bank. And you might want to read the fine print on those loans you took out in my name. Fraud has such interesting legal consequences. Are you threatening us? My father's voice roared, but it sounded hollow to my ears. No, I said, walking towards the door. I'm just finally being responsible for myself. I walked out, leaving them stammering in my wake. In my car, I pulled out my phone and dialed Liam. Hey, I said when he answered. Remember that lawyer you mentioned? Sophia? I need her number. You okay? He asked, his voice full of concern. I watched the kitchen light through my window, knowing they were probably already calling Chloe to warn her. No, I said honestly, but I will be. 3 days later, my phone buzzed with that familiar, dread-inducing text from my mom. Family dinner tonight. Don't disappoint us again. I knew what it was. An ambush, thinly disguised as reconciliation. But this time I was ready. I spent the afternoon with Liam, poring over bank documents. Look at these signatures, he said, pointing to loan papers dating back years. They used your information when you turned 18. Before I even had my first real job, I muttered, a cold wave washing over me. They were planning this for years. Liam suggested I skip dinner. Nothing good comes from these setups, Ava. But I went anyway. Recorder nestled safely in my purse. I walked into that house wearing the armor of a woman who had finally, irrevocably, had enough. The house reeked of my mom's famous lasagna, or maybe it was just the scent of manipulation. There's my successful daughter. My dad boomed as I walked in, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. Chloe sat at the table, looking wounded and fragile in that practiced, perfected way of hers. Ava, she whimpered, I can't believe you're being so difficult about this. I really need you right now. I took my seat silently. Mom brought out the lasagna, serving Chloe first. Always Chloe first. We've been talking, Mom began, her voice dripping with honey-sweet fake sincerity. And we think we found a solution that works for everyone. Everyone meaning Chloe. I interjected, the words tasting like ash. My father's fork clattered against his plate. Watch your tone, young lady. I'm 32, Dad. Not exactly a young lady anymore. Well, you're acting like a child. Mom cut in. Chloe needs a fresh start. Blake turned out to be terrible with money. I couldn't help but laugh. A bitter, humorless sound. Unlike Chloe, who's fantastic with it, especially when it's my money. That's not fair. Chloe's eyes welled up with immediate, theatrical tears. I'm trying my best. Your best. I pulled out my phone, opening my banking app. Let's talk about your best. I read from the screen, my voice steady, cold. Last year alone, $6,000 for your car repairs, $4,000 for dental work, $3,000 for that business venture that never actually happened. We're not here to discuss the past, Dad roared, interrupting me. We're here to talk about moving forward. Chloe moves in next week. You'll clear out your office, and we'll need you to cover her car payments until she finds a new job. I looked at them, my family, These strangers who saw me only as a resource.
No.
The word hung in the air, deafening in its finality. What did you say? Dad's face contorted in disbelief. I said no. Not happening. In fact, I reached into my bag, pulling out 3 identical envelopes. I have something for all of you. My mother stared, not daring to touch hers. What's this? Eviction notices. I stated, each word a hammer blow. You have 30 days to vacate my property. Chloe burst into racking sobs. My mother's face drained of all color. My father stood up so fast his chair crashed backward. You ungrateful little, he started, his voice a furious growl. But I pressed play on my recorder. His own voice, from just 3 days ago, filled the stunned silence. We used your information. Chloe will pay it back eventually. I have years of recordings, I said, my voice calm, unwavering. Conversations about using my social security number, about hiding bills in my name, about the loans you took out when I was barely legal. You recorded us? Mom whispered, her voice laced with horror. Your own family? Family? I stood up slowly, meeting their horrified gazes. Family doesn't commit fraud. Family doesn't steal identities. Family doesn't treat their daughter like an endless resource to be drained. We gave you everything, Dad shouted, desperation creeping into his fury. You gave me trauma and trust issues, I countered. You gave Chloe entitlement and irresponsibility. Quite the inheritance. Chloe was truly sobbing now, mascara streaking her face. How could you do this to me? To you? I turned to her, a cold fire in my eyes. I bought my first car at 16, working at a grocery store. Where did you get your first car? Oh, right. I paid for it. That's different. Mom protested weakly. She needed boundaries, I snapped, slamming my hand on the table. She needed parents, not enablers. And I needed a family, not parasites. My father stepped towards me, finger pointed, his face menacing. You owe us everything you have. We raised you. You raised me to be responsible. I cut him off, my voice chillingly calm. Congratulations. I'm being responsible. 30 days. Get out of my house. I walked to the door, their protests and Chloe's wails, Mom's threats, Dad's anger, washing over me like old static. One more thing, I said, turning back. I've frozen all my accounts and credit. Try using my information again, and the next papers you get won't be just eviction notices. In my car, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding for what felt like years. My phone immediately lit up with a barrage of texts, all caps, guilt trips, threats. I blocked each number methodically. Liam texted, "How'd it go?" "They know now," I replied. "The war is about to start." "You okay?" he asked. I started my car, watching through the window as my family huddled together, probably already calling Chloe to orchestrate their next move. "No," I typed back. But for the first time in years, I'm being honest about it. The next morning, Liam and I met at a downtown coffee shop, the small table overwhelmed by a grim collection of battle plans, bank statements, credit reports, loan applications. Years of financial abuse, laid bare in black and white. "Your parents were busy," Liam said, highlighting yet another fraudulent charge. "They used your information for a car loan in 2012, credit cards in 2015, and that home equity line just last month." I was such an idiot, I muttered, a pang of self-reproach hitting me. I remembered Beatrice, my old landlord, years ago. Her warning, given with a gentle squeeze of my hand, "Always read what you sign, honey. Family can hurt you worse than strangers." Liam's phone buzzed. "The bank's fraud department is ready for a call," he said, handing me the phone. For the next hour, we meticulously detailed every unauthorized transaction. The bank representative's typing echoed through the speaker. "Miss, these are serious allegations," she stated, her voice formal. "Especially against family members." "They stopped being family when they started being criminals," I replied, my voice steady, cold. After the call, Liam looked at me carefully, his concern evident. You know they won't go quietly, right? I know, I sighed. That's why I need your help with something else. We drove to my house. My parents' cars were conspicuously absent, probably out running errands with my gas money. Inside, I marched straight to the kitchen. Look at this, I said, pulling open a drawer overflowing with mail. Every bill my mother ever dodged, every statement she redirected, all of it, to my address. Liam whistled, sorting through the stack of overdue notices and collection letters. She's been busy, all right. Wait till you see upstairs. In my parents' room, I opened their filing cabinet. My mother, I realized, had always been meticulously organized about all the wrong things. I pulled out folders labeled with my name, dating back to my 18th birthday. Holy, Liam breathed, his eyes wide as he scanned the loan applications. They planned this for years. Look at these dates. They started taking out credit in your name the day you turn 18. And then the ultimate slap in the face. I reached to the back of the drawer, pulling out a familiar, yellow document. Remember when Dad always said they put me through college? I held up my full-ride scholarship letter. They took credit for paying for your education, Liam said, his voice rising in disbelief, while simultaneously stealing your identity. Classic mom and dad, I replied, a bitter smile touching my lips. Always taking credit for my success while actively undermining it. Back downstairs, I printed the eviction notice again. They'd already torn down the first one, taping it defiantly to the fridge. This time, I added a blunt note. Security cameras have been installed. Destruction of legal notices will be documented. You really thought this through, Ava, Liam observed. I had years to plan, I replied, the weariness evident in my voice, while paying their bills. I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from my mom, 2 from Chloe. They thought they could wait me out, wear me down with guilt, just like always. What about your sister? Think she'll try something? Liam asked. As if on cue, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. You'll regret this. Family is forever. Chloe always did have a flair for drama, I said, showing Liam the message. We should document everything, he suggested. Every threat, every attempt at contact. I nodded, another memory of Beatrice surfacing. I'd been crying about yet another loan my parents demanded, and she'd said, honey, sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let people face their own consequences. My phone buzzed again. An email from the bank confirming my credit freeze. Another buzz. A text from Sophia, the legal aid Liam had recommended. Documents received. Proceeding with formal eviction process. You know what's funny? I said to Liam, as we gathered the evidence. They always called me the responsible one, but they never thought I'd be responsible enough to stop them. What happens when the 30 days are up? They'll either leave on their own, or the sheriff will make them leave, I replied, closing my laptop. But knowing my family, they'll try everything before that happens. Liam helped me carry the documents to my car. You're doing the right thing, Ava. They're the ones who should feel guilty, not you. I know, I said, looking back at the house. My house, bought with my money, filled with people who'd seen me as nothing but a resource to drain. I'm done feeling guilty for having boundaries. That evening, I sat in my office, soon to be not Chloe's room, and opened a new document. At the top, I typed, Inheritance isn't always money. A guide to financial family abuse. My phone lit up with another anonymous text. You can't throw away blood. I typed back, watch me, and blocked the number. Opening my email, I found a message from Sophia. All paperwork filed. Sheriff's office confirmed. The clock is ticking. I smiled, picturing my family's faces when they finally realized their perfect little plan had backfired. They did. Teach me to be responsible after all. They just never expected me to be responsible for myself. The shattering sound of car doors slamming jolted me awake at 6 a.m. I peered through my bedroom window to see Chloe wrestling with 5 massive suitcases, my mom directing her like a furious traffic cop. Just bring them through the front door, sweetie, Mom called out. Ava's probably still sleeping. I wasn't. I stood at the top of the stairs, watching them barrel into my home as if they own the place. Chloe looked up, startled to see me. "Oh, Ava," she began, attempting her usual saccharine smile. "I thought I'd get settled in early. You know, beat the traffic." "Settled in where exactly?" "Your office, of course," Mom declared, dragging a suitcase across my hardwood floors, leaving a scuff mark like a fresh wound. "We discussed this at dinner." "No," I corrected her, my voice low and dangerous. "You demanded it at dinner, right before I served you all eviction notices." Chloe's smile faltered, her face falling. "Oh, that silly thing. Mom said you were just having a moment." "A moment." I descended the stairs slowly, deliberately, my gaze fixed on Chloe. "Like the moment you had when you maxed out 3 credit cards in my name?" "That was years ago," Chloe protested, her voice already cracking. "I was going through a rough patch." "You're always going through a rough patch, Chloe," I stated, the years of frustration heavy in every syllable. "And somehow, I'm always the one paying for it." My mom stepped between us, trying to play peacemaker, or rather, enabler. "Ava, stop being difficult. Your sister needs—" "Nothing for me." I cut her off. "You might want to unpack somewhere else, Chloe. This house isn't an option." "But I already gave up my apartment." Chloe's eyes welled up, right on cue. "I have nowhere else to go." "That," I said, a cold, hard truth, "sounds like a you problem." My mom gasped, clutching her chest. "Ava, how dare you be so heartless to your own sister?" "Heartless?" I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Was it heartless when you forged my signature on loan documents? When you used my social security number without permission? When you—" "That's enough." Mom snapped, her face contorting. "We're your family. You don't turn your back on family. Watch me." I pointed to the front door. "Get out. Now." Chloe burst into tears, her trademark move. "You're horrible after everything we've done for you." "Done for me?" I challenged her, my voice rising. "Name one thing. One single thing you've done that didn't end with your hand in my wallet." Silence. "That's what I thought." I walked to the front door, holding it wide open. "Take your bags and leave." They didn't move. Instead, Chloe dramatically flopped onto my couch, sobbing harder, clutching a silk pillow. My mom rushed to comfort her, shooting me venomous glares. "Fine," I said, pulling out my phone. "I'll call the police and report trespassing." "You wouldn't dare," Mom hissed, her eyes blazing. I started dialing. "Try me." Something in my voice, or perhaps the sight of the flashing numbers, must have convinced them. 20 minutes later, I watched from my window as they begrudgingly loaded the suitcases back into their cars. Chloe made a theatrical show of stumbling, weak from distress, my mom supporting her like she was walking to her execution. Just as they were about to leave, Chloe stormed back to the front door. I opened it before she could even knock. "You think you're so perfect," she spat, her face contorted in a mask of fury. "So successful, but you're just a cold, selfish expletive who never learned what family means." "No, Chloe," I corrected her, a grim satisfaction in my voice. "I learned exactly what family means to you." She reached past me, snatching the eviction notice from the wall and tearing it to shreds. "There. Good luck proving anything now." I simply pointed to the small security camera nestled in the corner of the hallway, its red light blinking steadily. "Thanks for the evidence of tampering with legal documents. Want to try for more?" Her face went ghost white. As she stormed out, my phone buzzed with a text from a blocked number. "You'll regret choosing money over blood." I typed back, "I'm choosing self-respect over abuse," and blocked that number too. Later that evening, my mom showed up alone. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but her voice was still dripping with accusation. "You're destroying this family," she said from my doorstep. "Is that what you want? To tear us all apart?" "No, Mom," I said, my voice tired but resolute. "I'm just giving back what you gave me. Years of manipulation, guilt, and theft. We're your parents. Everything we did was for your own good." "My own good?" I pulled out my phone, showing her the credit report. Was it for my own good when you destroyed my credit score? When you used my identity for loans? I'm sick, she interrupted, her voice suddenly weak, falling back on her usual tactic. The doctor says the stress could save the performance. I cut in. I already called your doctor. Funny how they have no record of these mysterious stress-related illnesses. She dropped the act, her face hardening. You'll regret this, Ava. Mark my words. No, Mom, I replied. The only thing I regretted was not doing this sooner. As she drove away, I texted Liam. Phase 1 complete. They're starting to realize I'm serious. His response came quickly. You okay? I looked around my quiet, now peaceful house. Getting there, I typed back. One boundary at a time. The private investigator's report landed in my inbox, its digital weight heavier than any physical document. You might want to sit down for this, Ava, Liam said over the phone. I scrolled through pages of damning evidence. Dozens of accounts opened in my name, email addresses I'd never seen, loan applications with my forged signature. But then, a familiar name leaped out. Blake. Chloe's ex-boyfriend. Got his number? I asked Liam, a new plan forming. I'm calling him. Blake answered on the third ring. Who's this? Ava, I said, Chloe's sister. A long, pregnant pause. Oh. Look, I can explain. I'm not calling about money. I cut him off, my voice sharp. I need information. He laughed, a bitter, broken sound. About your sister? Where do I even start? The fake business loans? The credit card scams? Or maybe how she convinced me to co-sign for her car by saying her rich sister would cover everything. My stomach clenched, a cold wave of disgust washing over me. Tell me everything. For the next hour, Blake painted a vivid, sickening picture of systematic fraud. Chloe had used my information for years, spinning elaborate lies that I'd promised to help her, even showing people doctored emails supposedly from me, guaranteeing I'd cover her debts. I should have known it was too good to be true, Blake admitted, his voice hollow. She always said, Ava will pay, like it was some magic spell. After hanging up, I immediately called Sophia, my legal aid. I need to lock down everything, I told her, my urgency clear. Every account, every possibility. Already on it, she replied. But you should know, your mother filed a complaint claiming elder abuse. Says you're forcing her out of her home while she's ill. I laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. Let me guess. No medical records to back that up? None, Sophia confirmed. But they're getting desperate. And desperate people get creative. That afternoon, I had all the locks changed and a new security system installed. The locksmith was just finishing up when my father's truck screeched into the driveway. What the hell is this? He demanded, storming up the walk, his face a mask of rage. New locks, I said calmly. For my house. Our house. We've lived here for 3 years. As guests, I corrected him, who committed fraud. He stepped closer, trying to intimidate me, just like he used to when I was a child. I built you. Everything you are is because of me. Really? I pulled out my phone, playing a recording. His own voice, smug and self-assured, filled the air. We used her information when she was 18. She'll never know. The locksmith looked between us uncomfortably, clearly wanting to disappear. You're recording everything? Dad's face contorted, livid. Like we're criminals. If the fraud charge fits, I retorted. I'm warning you, Ava. Back off now, or what? I stepped closer, unafraid. You'll forge more documents? Open more fake accounts? I've frozen everything. Reported all the fraud. There's nothing left for you to steal. We're your parents. No, I said, you're thieves who happened to raise me. He raised his hand, not to hit, but to point a furious finger, but I didn't flinch. The locksmith, bless his heart, stepped between us. Sir, he said firmly, I think you should leave. Dad's face was a roadmap of thwarted rage. This isn't over. Actually, it is, I said, holding up my phone. Smile for the security camera. Every threat is documented now. After he left, my phone erupted with messages. My mom sent photos of me as a child, captioned with sickening guilt trips. Chloe texted from new numbers, alternating between vicious threats and tearful pleas. I blocked each one methodically. That evening, I found a stack of mail hidden behind the microwave, more bills in my name. As I sorted through them, a memory surfaced. Chloe, at 16, watching me pay bills online. Must be nice, she'd said, being so good with money. It's not about being good with money, I'd replied. It's about being responsible. Well, that's what I have you for, right? She'd laughed. I hadn't realized then that she meant it literally. My phone buzzed. A text from Liam. You need to see this. He'd sent a link to a social media post, Chloe's latest masterpiece. A tearful, victimized story about her cruel sister throwing their sick mother out of her home, complete with staged photos of my mom looking frail in a hospital waiting room. The comments were exactly what Chloe wanted. How heartless. Family should come first. What kind of person does this to their own blood? I smiled, screenshot the post, and sent it to Sophia. More evidence of harassment and defamation. Perfect, she replied. Their desperation is making our case stronger. I walked through my house, touching the newly installed locks, the security cameras. They thought they were breaking me down. But each desperate, pathetic attempt only reinforced my resolve. My phone buzzed again. A text from another unknown number. Blood is thicker than water. I typed back, so is fraud, and hit block. The breaking point arrived on a Sunday morning, a day usually reserved for quiet reflection, not open warfare. I was in my kitchen when they arrived, all three of them, my dad clutching a worn folder like it held the deed to a gold mine. We're done playing games, he announced, slapping the folder onto my counter with a thud. Here's our proof of ownership. I didn't even bother to open it. Proof of what, exactly? This house. My mom declared triumphantly, her eyes gleaming. We've contributed financially since day one. We have rights. Funny you should mention contributions, I said, pulling out my laptop. I opened a spreadsheet I'd meticulously maintained for years. Let's talk numbers. We don't need to see your little computer files. Dad sneered, dismissing me. We have real documents. Real, I echoed, my voice laced with ice, like the loans you forged in my name. I turned the laptop around. Here's every single penny I've spent on this house. The down payment, my savings, every mortgage payment, my entire salary, utilities, taxes, insurance. All me. Chloe stepped forward, tears already streaming down her face, a practiced performance. But we're family. You can't just. Actually, I can. And I will. I pointed to their folder. Open it. Show me this proof of ownership. Dad hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. Go ahead. I pressed, my voice firm. Show me what you believe gives you rights to my property. He slowly opened the folder, spreading out a few crumpled papers, receipts for furniture they'd bought years ago, a handful of utility bills they'd occasionally paid, a few grocery receipts. I stared, then let out a sharp, incredulous laugh. That's it? That's your claim to my house? We helped furnish it. Mom protested, her voice rising in pitch. We've maintained it. With my money. I shot back, each word a bullet. Every single time you helped, it was with funds you stole from me. We didn't steal anything. Dad's fist slammed onto the counter, his face purple with rage. We invested in this family. Something inside me finally, irrevocably, snapped. Years of suppressed anger burst forth, a torrent of righteous fury. Invested? I shouted, making them all jump. You raised Chloe to expect endless bailouts. You taught her that my success was her personal safety net. You forged documents, stole my identity, and now you have the audacity to claim my house. Don't you dare speak to us that way. Mom stepped forward, her face furious. After everything we've sacrificed. I challenged her, tears of pure rage burning in my eyes. What exactly did you sacrifice? My credit score? My financial security? My trust? Chloe collapsed into a chair, sobbing dramatically, drawing attention to herself. You're destroying our family. No, I said, my voice raw with emotion. You destroyed this family. Every time you chose fraud over honesty. Every time you picked theft over responsibility. Every time you decided my money was your right. Dad raised the folder again, wielding it like a weapon. We'll sue. We'll take this to court. Perfect. I pulled out my phone. Let's call Sophia right now. I'm sure she'd love to present evidence of your fraud to a judge. You wouldn't dare, Mom whispered, her bravado faltering. Try me. I dialed Sophia's number, putting it on speaker. Hey, Sophia. My family's here with some interesting documents. Think we should add them to the fraud case? Absolutely. Sophia's voice rang clear and confident. The more evidence of their financial abuse, the better. Dad snatched the folder back, his face a mask of defeat. This isn't over. Actually, I said, walking to my front door and opening it wide, a chill wind sweeping through the house. It is. Get out. You can't just throw us out. Chloe wailed, desperate. Where will I go? You should have thought about that, I replied, my voice hard, before using my identity as your personal ATM. Mom tried one last, desperate tactic. The neighbors already think you're horrible. Throwing out your own family. Your sick mother. Sick. I laughed, a bitter, dismissive sound. Should we call your doctor again? The one who has no record of these mysterious illnesses. They stood frozen, finally realizing their usual manipulations weren't working. Leave now, I said firmly, or I call the police again. As they shuffled out, broken and defeated, Dad turned back. You'll regret this eventually, he growled. When you're alone with your money, you'll see what really matters. I already regret not doing this sooner, I replied, meeting his gaze. And what really matters? It's not money. It's self-respect. Through my security camera, I watched them huddle in the driveway, a pathetic tableau. Chloe's sobs echoed dramatically. Mom played the frail victim, making furious calls. Dad, meanwhile, was on the phone, his face red with impotent rage. Minutes later, my phone lit up with messages from relatives I hadn't heard from in years, all condemning my cruelty to my poor family. I blocked each number systematically. Then I saw it, a sheriff's car pulling up to my house. Mom's face lit up with vindictive triumph as she hurried to speak with the officer. But I wasn't worried. I opened my front door, holding up my own folder of evidence, the real kind, with bank statements, fraud reports, and police documentation. The officer looked between us, then at my meticulously organized documents. Ma'am, he said to my mother, his voice stern, making false reports is a serious offense. As the officer explained this to my increasingly pale-faced family, I stood in my doorway, watching their last desperate power play crumble into dust. My phone buzzed. Liam, you okay? No, I replied honestly. But I'm free. Moving day arrived with the subtlety of a Category 5 hurricane. I stood on my front porch at 8 a.m. sharp, watching the sheriff's car pull up alongside a massive moving truck. My family, predictably, hadn't left voluntarily. Morning, the sheriff nodded, a weary recognition in his eyes. Are they inside? Where else would they be? I sighed, a bitter amusement. They still think this is their house. Right on cue, Chloe's voice, shrill with indignation, carried through an open window. You can't do this. We have rights. The sheriff knocked firmly on the door. My mom opened it, already in full performance mode, dabbing at invisible tears with a tissue. Officer, she whimpered, my daughter is trying to make her sick mother homeless. Ma'am, we've been through this, he replied, utterly unfazed. The property belongs to Ava. You've been served proper notice. It's time. The movers, stoic professionals, waited patiently as my family staged their final, desperate stand. Dad appeared behind Mom, puffing up his chest. This is illegal, he bellowed. We've lived here for years. Without a lease, I added, stepping forward, without paying rent, while committing fraud. Chloe appeared next, Mascara strategically smeared for maximum effect. How can you watch them throw us out? Your own family? The same way you watched yourself destroy my credit one day at a time? I shot back, my voice flat. The sheriff stepped forward, his patience clearly wearing thin. Folks, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. Your choice. Mom tried one last time, turning to the movers, her voice a desperate plea. Please, you can't help them do this. We're being persecuted. The head mover, a man who had clearly seen it all, looked uncomfortable but remained professional. Just doing our job, ma'am. Where would you like your things taken? Nowhere, Dad shouted, his face red. We're not leaving. Actually, I stepped forward, holding out an address to the mover. Everything's going to their storage unit. Already paid for 3 months. I looked at them, my voice devoid of emotion. I'm not heartless. Just done. The next 2 hours were a symphony of chaos. My mom alternated between wailing theatrically and making frantic phone calls to relatives, no doubt spinning her victim narrative. Dad stormed around, trying to claim ownership of things that absolutely weren't his. Chloe, meanwhile, collapsed dramatically every time someone touched her belongings. This lamp was a gift, Mom protested, as the movers carefully wrapped it. From me, I reminded her, a sardonic smile on my face. Like most things in this house. Neighbors, drawn by the spectacle, started gathering, their whispers and phone cameras documenting the scene. Mom played to the audience, making sure everyone heard her cries about her cruel daughter. Did you know? I announced loudly, my voice cutting through the noise, that identity theft is a felony, even when it's family? That, finally, shut her up if only for a moment. As the movers worked, I noticed Chloe slipping upstairs. I followed her to my office, where she was frantically searching through drawers. Looking for something? I asked from the doorway. More documents to forge, maybe? She spun around, clutching papers to her chest. These are mine. Really? I said, stepping into the room. Because they look an awful lot like loan applications with my forged signature. Her face crumpled. You were supposed to take care of me. That's what big sisters do. No, Chloe. I corrected her, a weary sadness in my voice. That's what enablers do. And I'm done enabling. Back downstairs, the house was nearly empty. Mom sat on the front steps, playing the victim for her phone camera, probably live streaming for social media. Dad was still arguing with the sheriff about property rights. Sir, the sheriff said firmly, continue this behavior and you'll leave in my car instead of yours. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the house was clear. My family stood in the driveway, looking utterly lost among their boxed-up lives. This is your last chance, Ava, Mom said quietly, her voice almost pleading. Families should stick together. We're not family, I replied, the truth echoing in the sudden silence. We're just people who share DNA and a history of financial abuse. You'll regret this, Dad growled, his face contorted. Mark my words. Already marked, I said, a faint smile touching my lips. Already documented. Already reported to the police. Chloe made one final, desperate scene, falling to her knees on the lawn. How will I survive? The same way I did, I told her, my voice clear and strong. By actually trying. As they finally drove away, Mom to my aunt's, Dad to a motel, Chloe to whatever friend would take her, I noticed an envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside was a note, in Chloe's familiar, looping handwriting. You'll always be the villain in this story. Hope your money keeps you warm at night. I walked through my empty house. Truly mine now. The silence felt like freedom, a profound, almost spiritual liberation. My phone buzzed with messages from flying monkeys, distant relatives, all condemning me, all parroting my mother's narrative. I blocked them all. Then, a text from Liam. Need company? No, I replied, a peaceful calm settling over me. For the first time in forever, I need to be alone. In my own space. I sat on my stairs, feeling the immense weight of years lifting from my shoulders. My family thought this was the end of their story. They didn't realize it was just the beginning of mine. The sheriff's final words echoed in my mind. Sometimes the hardest part isn't standing up to others. It's standing up for yourself. The morning sun streamed through my office windows, illuminating the final paragraph of my blog post. My phone buzzed. Liam had sent me a link to Chloe's latest social media pity party. Still playing victim? He texted. Always, I replied, clicking the link. Her post showed her in a cramped apartment, lamenting her cruel sister, who destroyed our family over money. But the comments weren't what she expected. Instead of sympathy, people were asking, why were you living in her house rent-free? Did you really commit identity theft? Sounds like you're the problem, not your sister. The tides were turning.
My doorbell rang.
I checked the security camera to see Sophia, my legal aid, holding a triumphant folder. Good news, she announced as I let her in. The fraud investigation is complete. Your parents are facing charges unless they agree to repayment terms. Let me guess, I said, a wry smile on my face. They're still claiming innocence? Well, she smiled back, until we show them the evidence. They're signing the agreement today. My phone rang. An unknown number. Usually I'd ignore it, but something compelled me to answer. Ava, a familiar voice said. It was Beatrice, my old landlord, the woman who'd first warned me about family taking advantage. I saw your blog, she said, her voice warm. The one about financial abuse. It's helping people, you know. My niece read it and finally stood up to her parasitic brother. After hanging up, I checked my blog's comments. Hundreds of stories, all echoing mine. People were finding courage, setting boundaries, breaking free. Your story gave me strength, one read. I finally told my mom no. I thought I was alone, said another. Thank you for showing me I'm not. Liam arrived with lunch, finding me deep in responses. Still feel guilty? He asked, setting down takeout containers. No, I said honestly, a genuine smile spreading across my face. I feel peaceful. My phone buzzed again. A text from my mom. The lawyers made us sign. Happy now? I typed back. This was never about happiness.
It was about consequences.
They're living with Aunt Sarah, Liam said between bites. Heard she's not too thrilled about their fraud charges. Good, I replied, a wave of relief washing over me. Let someone else deal with their drama for once. Another buzz. Chloe, I'm starting therapy. Not that you care. This time, I didn't block her. I responded, good. That's the first responsible decision you've made. We finished lunch as a moving truck pulled up next door. My new neighbors, a young couple, bubbling with excitement for their first home, waved as they passed my window. Normal neighbors, I mused. What a concept. Liam gathered the takeout containers. You never answered my question. From last week. Was it worth it? I looked around my peaceful house. No more financial abuse. No more manipulation. No more guilt. They thought revenge would feel like violence, I said, a profound truth settling in my soul. But sometimes it feels like peace. My laptop pinged. Another blog comment. I've been supporting my adult son for decades. After reading your story, I finally said no. He was angry, but for the first time in years, I can breathe. I started typing a response when my doorbell rang again. The security camera showed my dad, alone, looking smaller, more defeated than I'd ever seen him. What do you want? I asked through the intercom. To return this, he said, holding up a key, my spare house key, the one they'd copied without permission. I opened the door, but didn't invite him in. He handed me the key, his gaze avoiding mine. Your mother wanted me to tell you you're still wrong, he mumbled. Then he paused, struggling, the words thick with unaccustomed honesty. But maybe we were wrong, too. Maybe the fraud charges. He swallowed hard. They're real. We did that to our own daughter. Finally, he looked at me, a glimmer of something approaching remorse in his eyes. When did we become those people? You always were those people, Dad. I replied, the blunt truth hanging between us. I just stopped accepting it. He nodded slowly, a deep sigh escaping him. Chloe's in therapy. Says she's learning about something called financial codependency. Good for her. And us. He cleared his throat. We're selling the boat and the timeshare to pay you back. Actions, not words, Dad, I said, my voice gentle but firm. He turned to leave, then stopped, his shoulders slumped. We really thought we were entitled to your success. That's messed up, isn't it? Yes, I said simply. It is. After he left, I returned to my blog, the cursor blinking, inviting me to share one last thought. People say blood is thicker than water, I typed, but self-respect is thicker than both. Sometimes the greatest act of love for yourself and others is saying no. Sometimes the hardest family lesson is learning that karma isn't what you serve, it's what you set free. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Chloe. I'm sorry. Not for show. For real. I saved her number instead of blocking it. Not for reconciliation. Not yet. But for possibility. Because sometimes karma comes with consequences, and sometimes consequences come with change. That last exchange with my father, the one where he finally admitted their warped sense of entitlement, it lingered in the air long after he was gone. He looked so small, so broken, clutching that spare key, the physical manifestation of their invasion of my life. When did we become those people? He'd asked. You always were, Dad. I just stopped accepting it. The words had been sharp, but necessary. They weren't born of malice, but of truth, years of suppressed truth. And then Chloe's text, I'm sorry. Not for show. For real. I'd saved her number, that fragile thread of possibility, an open question mark hanging over the wreckage of our family. Not for reconciliation. Not yet, but for the potential of change. Because sometimes karma comes with consequences, and sometimes consequences come with change. I wanted to believe that I really did. But after everything, trust was a fortress I wouldn't easily abandon. The next few weeks were a strange blend of peace and persistent background noise. The quiet of my house, the pure, unadulterated silence, was a balm to my soul. I rediscovered the joy of making my own coffee, without the looming anxiety of another family crisis, of watching a movie without someone barging and expecting me to pay for their streaming service. My new neighbors, the young couple, Sarah and Tom, were a breath of fresh air. They just waved and smiled, oblivious to the emotional battlefield their new home sat adjacent to. Simple, uncomplicated interactions. It was normal. A concept I was still learning to embrace. But the background noise was there. The legal process Sophia was steering, the slow grind of forcing my parents to face the music. They agreed to the repayment terms, of course, because the alternative, criminal charges for financial fraud, was far too real. Sophia sent me a copy of the agreement, a thick document outlining the sale of their boat, the timeshare, even some of their less than essential furniture, all to start paying back the money they'd stolen. It wasn't just the direct loans. It was years of hidden credit cards, phantom subscriptions, and diverted funds. The total was staggering. Looking at it all laid out, cold and factual, confirmed what I'd always suspected. I was a walking, breathing ATM for them. My mom's calls didn't stop, but they changed. No longer threatening, they were laced with self-pity and thinly veiled accusations of my coldness. How could you do this to your own mother? She'd whine. You know your father's heart isn't strong. This stress, I didn't pick up. Instead, I'd listen to her voicemails, jot down any specific claims for Sophia, and then delete them. My boundaries were holding. Chloe's texts were different. After that first I'm sorry, they became sporadic, tentative. Updates from her therapy sessions, often phrased as if she were reporting to a strict teacher. My therapist says I need to take responsibility for my actions. Or I'm learning about financial codependency today. It's a lot. I didn't respond to most of them, not immediately. I needed to see action, not just words. Change, for Chloe, had always been a fleeting emotion, not a deep-seated commitment. I was watching, observing, but I wasn't dropping my guard. Not yet. The blog, Inheritance Isn't Always Money, exploded. It was raw, honest, and hit a nerve. I received hundreds of comments, emails, and DMs from people sharing their own stories of financial abuse, toxic family dynamics, and the immense guilt of setting boundaries. Your story gave me the courage to look at my own situation, one message read. I thought I was alone, another confessed. Thank you for making me feel seen. It was overwhelming, humbling, and incredibly validating. My story, my pain, was helping others. It gave purpose to the chaos. Liam, ever my rock, celebrated with me. We'd grab coffee, and he'd bring printouts of particularly impactful comments. You're building a community, Ava, he'd say, a proud smile on his face. This is bigger than just you now.
He was right.
I started spending evenings not just writing, but responding, offering encouragement, sharing resources. It was a new chapter, one where my experience wasn't a burden, but a tool for empowerment. But with growing visibility came a new kind of scrutiny. Chloe's social media antics, while initially designed for sympathy, were starting to backfire. More and more comments on her posts referenced the sister's blog, hinting at the truth. She tried to delete them, block people, but the internet has a long memory. Her carefully curated image of the fragile victim was cracking. My mother, in her infinite wisdom, decided to escalate. She started calling local news outlets, fabricating tales of her brilliant but misguided daughter who was destroying her family over petty money issues. The phone calls got flagged by Sophia's office, who had set up alerts for any public statements. They're trying to control the narrative, Ava, Sophia explained. But we have the documented truth. Don't engage directly. One afternoon, my phone rang from an unknown number. Ava, is that you? The voice was vaguely familiar, dripping with a false sweetness. This is Aunt Martha. I heard about what you're doing to your mother and father. TSK, TSK. Such an ungrateful child. My heart hammered. Aunt Martha. The family gossip, the one who always sided with my mother, always preached about blood. Aunt Martha, I said, my voice steady, I'm not discussing my private family matters with you. Private? It's all over town. Your poor mother is heartbroken. You broke her heart, Ava. No, Aunt Martha. I calmly corrected her. My parents broke several laws. And they broke my trust. Those are two very different things. A sputtering gasp from the other end. How dare you? You need to apologize to your mother right now. Family is family, Ava. And fraud is fraud. I countered, my voice firm. I'm done being abused, Aunt Martha. Don't call me again. And I hung up, blocking her number, without a second thought. It felt exhilarating. The old Ava would have crumbled under that guilt trip. The new Ava stood tall. A few weeks later, my parents' house officially went on the market. It was a modest home, but valuable in the current market. Seeing the for sale sign in front of the house where I'd grown up, where so much manipulation had taken root, was surreal. It was a physical representation of the consequences they were finally facing. They were forced to sell it to cover the vast sum of money they owed me, plus legal fees. It wasn't about vengeance, but justice. A quiet, undeniable justice. They moved into a small apartment my Aunt Sarah found for them. Sarah, a perpetually anxious woman, quickly found herself caught in the crossfire, becoming their new default enabler. I didn't pity them. I felt a sense of relief. It was no longer my problem. Chloe continued her therapy updates, but she also started sending more personal texts. Not apologies, not exactly, but reflections. I remembered today in session how I always used to get you to do my chores. It just felt normal. Or, my therapist asked why I thought your money was mine. I didn't have a good answer. These were different. They weren't just reporting, they were processing. I still didn't respond to all of them, but I started to offer a short, neutral reply now and then.
Keep going.
Or, that's a good insight. Baby steps. Trembling, uncertain baby steps towards something I couldn't yet define. Then came an unexpected twist. My blog, which had mainly focused on financial abuse, was picked up by a national online publication. They wanted to do an interview, feature my story, potentially turn it into a series. It was a huge opportunity, but it also meant my identity, my story, would be fully public. Liam was thrilled. This is incredible, Ava. You could help so many more people. Sophia cautioned me about the increased scrutiny, the potential for backlash from my family. They might try to discredit you even more publicly. I weighed the risks. The thought of my parents and Chloe being exposed on a larger scale was daunting, but the thought of all those anonymous messages, all those people who felt alone, outweighed it. I decided to go for it. The interview was intense. I told my story without holding back, detailing the fraud, the manipulation, the emotional toll. I talked about Beatrice's simple wisdom, Liam's unwavering support, Sophia's legal acumen. I spoke about the immense difficulty and ultimate liberation of setting boundaries with family. When the article went live, the internet exploded. It was a whirlwind of support, criticism, and everything in between. My parents, of course, were furious. My mother's attempts to spin her narrative to the local news were quickly overshadowed by the national exposure. The comment sections of their pitiful social media posts were now filled with people calling them out for their actions, quoting sections of my article. It was brutal, but it was honest. Amidst the chaos, a text from Chloe. It wasn't one of her therapy updates. It was just a link to the article followed by, I read it. All of it. I'm so sorry, Ava. Not just for me, but for Mom and Dad. What they did to you. This was different. This was raw, vulnerable. And it included my parents and her apology, not just her own actions. I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time, a tiny spark of hope. I still didn't reply immediately. I let it sit, let the enormity of her words sink in. A few days later, my phone buzzed again.
It was a video call request.
From Chloe. I stared at it, my heart pounding. I hadn't video chatted with her in years. I almost declined, but then I remembered my own blog, my own message. Sometimes karma comes with consequences, and sometimes consequences come with change. I took a deep breath and I answered. Her face appeared on the screen, a little older, a little tired, but something else was there too. A vulnerability I'd never seen. Her eyes were red-rimmed, not from calculated tears, but from genuine emotion. Ava, she started, her voice hoarse, I just wanted to see you. To say it again.
I'm so sorry.
For everything. I didn't realize. I mean, I knew we were using you, but I didn't see the depth of the damage until I read your story. And seeing it from your perspective, seeing what Mom and Dad did, what I did, it's just horrific. She wasn't playing a role. She wasn't trying to manipulate. She was just
Chloe.
Broken, yes, but also, for the first time, truly remorseful. I'm in group therapy now too, she continued, and they talk about how I enable Mom and Dad. How they enabled me. It's a cycle, Ava. And I want out. I listened, truly listened for a long time. There was no theatrical wailing, no attempts to turn the conversation back to her own suffering. Just raw, painful admission. It's a lot to unpack, Chloe, I finally said, my voice still guarded. Years of it. I know, she said, nodding, a tear tracing a path down her cheek. And I don't expect you to forgive me right away. Or ever. But I just wanted you to know. I see it now. I really see it. That was it. That was the breakthrough I hadn't dared to hope for. She wasn't just apologizing for her own actions, but for the systemic abuse. She was acknowledging the pattern, the cycle. What are you doing now? I asked, changing the subject slightly, testing the waters. I got a job, she said, a flicker of pride in her eyes. Part-time, at a coffee shop. And I'm building up savings. I want to start paying you back. For the car, for the other things. It'll take me a while, but I will. Take care of yourself first, Chloe, I told her. Focus on your therapy, your job. Don't worry about paying me back right now. Just keep going. That conversation opened a tiny, fragile door. It wasn't an invitation back into my life, not fully, but a sign of a potential future where she might be a healthy individual. My parents, however, remained entrenched. Their house sold, and the funds went directly into repaying me, settling accounts, and covering Sophia's fees. They were furious, blaming me for their diminished lifestyle. My mother, in particular, swore vengeance. She tried to organize a family intervention with the few remaining distant relatives who still listened to her. But my public story had reached them, too. The consensus was shifting. Many of those relatives simply didn't show up. The ones who did were met with a calm, assertive Ava, who reiterated the facts, showed them proof, and refused to be drawn into their guilt trips. The last few flying monkeys finally landed on solid ground. A few months passed. My blog was thriving. I'd started holding online workshops, helping others navigate their own journeys out of financial abuse. My house, my home, felt truly like a sanctuary. I cultivated a small garden, something I'd always wanted to do, but never had the mental space for. I found myself laughing more easily, truly enjoying quiet evenings, movie nights with Liam, and adventures with Sarah and Tom. Then, one evening, I was on my porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in fiery hues, when I saw a car pull up. It was my father. He looked older, more worn than before. He got out of the car, slowly, and walked up the path, holding a small, weathered wooden box. "Ava," he said, his voice softer, less blustery. "Your mother isn't coming. She still can't face it." He sat down heavily on the step below me. "I wanted to give you this. It's your grandmother's. She wanted you to have it when you got your own house." Inside, nestled on a faded velvet cushion, was a delicate silver locket. It was beautiful, a true family heirloom. "Grandma Beatrice always said you were the strong one," he murmured, almost to himself. "The one who would make her own way." "She did," I said, my voice thick with emotion, recalling my old landlord's name and her simple, profound wisdom. "She helped me see it." He sighed, a deep, shuddering breath. "I remember when you were little. You'd ask me for piggybacks, and I'd carry you on my shoulders. I was so proud of you. And somewhere along the way, I let her down. I let you down." He looked at me then, truly met my gaze, and I saw not anger, but profound sorrow. "I'm sorry, Ava. For everything. For not protecting you. For enabling your mother. For letting Chloe take advantage. I was so lost in trying to keep everyone happy that I forgot what it meant to be decent. To be a father." It was the most honest, raw admission I had ever heard from him. The words hung in the air, a silent apology decades overdue. "It's a long road back, Dad," I said, my voice gentle. "If there even is one. But thank you. For this. And for saying that." He nodded, a single tear tracing a path down his weathered cheek. He stood up, slowly, heavily. "I'm starting therapy too," he confessed. "Chloe's been pushing me." And then he walked away, leaving me with the locket and the echoes of his words. I didn't hear from him again for a long time. Just updates from Chloe, who was genuinely, slowly, changing. She was holding down her job, volunteering at an animal shelter, even making amends with Blake. Their relationship was still broken, but she was taking responsibility for her part in its destruction. She'd send me photos of herself at the shelter, looking genuinely happy, not performatively so. She was building a life, brick by painful brick, just like I had. She wasn't reaching out for money or favors. She was reaching out, tentatively, for connection. Not with the expectation of immediate forgiveness, but with the hope of eventual understanding. 1 year after the eviction, a letter arrived. It was from my mother's lawyer. She was filing for divorce. The stress of the financial consequences, the public humiliation, and my father's newfound, quiet remorse had finally shattered their decades-long, dysfunctional alliance. My father, in his own way, was finally standing up for himself too. My blog, "Inheritance Isn't Always Money," became a book. It wasn't just my story anymore. It was a guide, a beacon for others. I traveled, giving talks, sharing my journey. I found love, a real, healthy, respectful love with someone who saw me, not just my resources. Liam was my best man. Beatrice, frail but bright-eyed, was in the front row. And my new neighbors, Sarah and Tom, were there too, celebrating the peaceful life I had built. On the day the book launched, I received a small, carefully wrapped package. Inside was a tiny, intricately carved wooden bird. It came with a card, in Chloe's now steady handwriting. Saw this and thought of you. You taught me how to fly. Thank you for showing me what real strength looks like. And for not giving up on me, even when I deserved it. Love, Chloe. It wasn't a full reconciliation. We still had a long way to go, years of rebuilding trust, of redefining what family could be. But it was a start. A real, genuine start. I stood on the stage, looking out at a sea of faces, all strangers, all connected by shared experiences, by stories of pain and perseverance. My parents were not in the audience. My mother was still consumed by her bitterness, clinging to her victim narrative. My father was on his own journey of quiet introspection. But Chloe was there. I saw her in the back, a small, knowing smile on her face. She was applauding, not just for the author on stage, but for the sister who had shown her that there was another way. I closed my eyes for a moment, taking it all in. The journey had been harrowing, painful, and at times, I thought I would break. But I hadn't. I had found my voice, my strength, and my peace. And in doing so, I had not only saved myself, but opened a path for others to find their own freedom. Sometimes, the greatest act of love for yourself and for others is saying no. And sometimes consequences come with change. And sometimes, just sometimes, that change can lead to an unexpected, profound kind of healing. I'm curious, what does true healing look like to you after deep family betrayal? Is it forgiveness, or simply finding peace within yourself? Let me know in the comments below. I'm eager to hear your thoughts.